Welcome in to the first of what will be many collabs here, as we appreciate you hanging with us. Look at that. Walterfootball from Walterfootball.com is in the house, not just hanging, but with us, providing some insight, some guidance, if you will, ahead of week 9 in the NFL. I'm Eitan, just hanging, as you know, on the OddsShopper channel. We are combining forces, Walt, and it is a pleasure and honor to have you with us now, as we are both powering up, if you will, to hit people with some just winning strategies across the board. You're going to dive into the Circa, Westgate, how you play and your strategy, even give us a couple of picks, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So in these contests, you make 5 picks each week. We're going to talk about the picks for week 9. I'm excited to join the channel and combine forces. And let's talk about week 9.
Anything to get away from our Phillies right now from where we are, right?
Yeah, couldn't get a hit last night. Hopefully they can at least get a hit tonight and not embarrass themselves.
Absolutely. This is going to be the opposite of that. This is going to be hit after hit. You're going to give us your 5 plays. It's going to be hit after hit. So we don't have to worry about that by any means. And look, we'll remind you, not only here on the OddsShopper channel to thumbs up and subscribe away, but more importantly, head on over to walterfootball.com. This is the place to be for everything from just fantasy rankings to picks against the spread. You are getting comprehensive data, information, plays. You are getting everything. The 5-tool website, if you will, if I may, Walter.
Yeah, we have everything at walterfootball.com. I think we're best known for our mock drafts. We have 2023 and 2024 NFL mock drafts on the site, but we also do picks against the spread, fantasy rankings. We grade every signing. We graded every trade from the trade deadline. So it's everything's at walterfootball.com, and definitely check it out.
All right, so you're going to give us our picks here to work with as far as what you're looking at this week. Is there any broad strategy that you because this is our first video, so each week you're going to have the opportunity through your picks to kind of explain how the week changes and how you're looking at each game. But one thing that might be interesting for everybody watching is and especially anybody new to this, is your overall strategy, especially if there is any little subtle change from just basic picks against the spread.
Yeah, so in these contests, the lines lock, or for the Westgate, they lock on Wednesday evening. For the Circa, it's Thursday afternoon. So the spreads stay constant; they don't change like they do in real life. So what a lot of people do is play the line value game. So if a team is +3 on listed, and then by Saturday when you have to submit your picks, they're down to +2. They'll take the +3 in the value, so you know where a lot of the picks are going in the contest. So if you're closer to the top, you probably would want to go with the +3 if it makes sense to you. But if you're off to a bad start or something, let's say for example in week 3 we had that Jaguars Charger game where it was Jaguars +7, but then the Herbert news was announced and it dropped to +3.5. If you went 1-9 in the first 2 weeks of the contest, you needed to get leverage on the other the rest of the field. So a good strategy would be to fade all those picks that were coming in on the Jaguars and take the Chargers at -3.5. So you kind of have to gauge where you are in the contest, but you can definitely tell which sides are going to be picked more often than not.
Let's look at it. You have 5 picks for us this week, Walter. I can't wait to hear where we begin. Let's start with your first play.
Yeah, the first one, just going down the card, is Washington +3.5 against Minnesota. So we're gonna make some enemies here right away from Viking fans. Viking fans hate me right now because I keep saying their team is not very good. I think they're a decent team, but they're so overrated right now, I think. So just going down their schedule, week 3 against the Lions, they were down 10 in the fourth quarter. They needed injuries to St. Brown and Swift to win that game at the very end. Week 4, they played the Saints in London. Alvin Kamara was out. And they needed a field goal at the end to win that game. Week 5, they almost lost to the Bears. Week 6, they played against Skylar Thompson and an injured Teddy Bridgewater, and they were outgained by 224 yards. And then last week against Arizona, they were up only 2, and then there was a muffed punt, and that's how they won the game. So I'm just not convinced this Viking team is as good as 6-1. The record indicates. I think they're about 4-3, and I think they're pretty close to Washington. I think they're about 8 spots apart in EPA. So I don't think this should be 3.5-point favorites on the road here. Taylor Heineke's been a lot better than Carson Wentz, metrics wise. Wentz was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, he couldn't get the ball to Terry McLaurin. Heineken could do that, and McLaurin should be able to attack a Minnesota secondary that's not very good. And also with plus 3.5, we get 4 out of the 6 key numbers. So 28% of NFL games land on 3, 6, and 7. So to get 3, 6, and 7 for Washington winning, and also 3 for Minnesota winning, I think it's a big deal. So yeah, Washington plus 3.5 sounds really good to me.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what they've been able to do. You mentioned the quarterback change, some changes on defense, and here come the Commanders. By all means, you get them at plus 3.5. Play one. Love it. All right, from Washington to our next play, Walter, where are we going?
Another 3.5 point home underdog with Detroit. They're plus 3.5 against the Packers. So I think the Lions are not one of the worst teams in the NFL. Well, they're not the worst team in the NFL, I should say. Maybe they are one of the worst teams. But I think they're a little underrated, because if you look at their schedule, every single team they've played so far currently has a 500 record or better. They've played so many tough teams like Dallas, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Miami, New England without with an injured St. Brown, and without Swift. This is their easiest game since week 2 against Washington. And if you remember what happened in that game, they were up 25-0 against Washington until, that Washington came back a little bit to make it a little bit closer. But Detroit was well in command in that game. And I think they should be able to win this game, or maybe just cover. I don't like the Packers at all. Their offense stinks. Aaron Rodgers has an injured thumb. They have issues pass protecting. The receivers can't get open. The receivers can't catch passes. So I don't think they're going to score as many points on the Lions as people think. Meanwhile, the Packers defense, they lost Devondre Campbell in that Sunday night game. So their defense, which is already not performing up to standards, is going to be a lot worse with Campbell out. So I think that the Lions should be able to hang with the Packers. Like I said, I think they could easily win outright, but getting the plus 3.5, I think is key. Like I said before, 3, 6, and 7 are such important numbers in the NFL, because 28% of the games land on those numbers. So to get 3 and then 3, 6, and 7 on the other side, Detroit is, I think, is a great value play. Kicking
Aaron Rodgers when he's down, Walt. I love it.
Yeah, it's a rough year for Rodgers. I don't expect this to be better. I mean, they lost to Washington, and Detroit beat Washington pretty easily in week 2. So I don't understand why the Packers are favored on the road.
So quick reminder here. We always tell you on the OddsShopper channel, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, be a part of what we're doing, shopping odds for you. But we also want to remind you, most importantly, about what's going on at Walterfootball.com. Not only are you getting Walter here with us once a week to give you his 5 plays across the board for both Circa and Westgate, but you can take full advantage of what's going on over there at Walterfootball.com. Mock drafts right there at the top, your go-to spot for all NFL mock drafts. You're getting picks against the spread. You're getting fantasy football rankings. You're getting grades across all free agencies from signings. You're also getting trade grades. So, Walt, you have the entire landscape covered when it comes to anything you need in the NFL betting or DFS world, and you're getting the analytics and mock drafts behind it.
Yeah, everything to do with the NFL, and we have updated picks throughout the week. So on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then Monday for the Monday night game, I have updated thoughts on these games. So we have the injury reports coming out on Friday, which is so important. So I'm probably going to stick with these 5 for the contest. But, if some unexpected injuries come up, I'll make some changes, and you'll be able to see that at walterfootball.com. Plus, like you said, lots of NFL draft content as well, and everything else to do with the NFL. All
right, let's keep it moving now. Our third play for the week.
Yeah, our third home underdog, the last one here. So
love
Atlanta.
The dogs.
Yeah. Four of these 5 picks are underdogs. Atlanta plus 3 against the Chargers. So I think this would surprise a lot of people, where the Chargers are 9th worst in the NFL in net EPA. Actually, Atlanta is even better than the Chargers. But then you kind of look at what the Chargers have done before their bye. They needed a missed field goal to beat the Browns, and we know how bad the Browns could be. They were blown out at New England right after that. They needed overtime to beat the Broncos team, where Russell Wilson couldn't move around because of his bum hamstring in overtime. And then against Seattle, they got blown out. So I don't understand why the Chargers are favored on the road here. I know they're coming off a bye, but still, it seems like Atlanta should be able to take advantage of the Chargers' biggest weakness, which is their run defense. They can't stop the run at all, and Atlanta does nothing but run the ball. So it's just a big advantage for the Falcons. And then with the Chargers, they have a ton of injuries. They already had no Joey Bosa. They had no Rashawn Slater. J.C. Jackson's out. Mike Williams is out. Now Keenan Allen's not practicing. So who are they throwing to besides Austin Eckler? I just don't see this Charger team having a lot of success offensively, even though Atlanta's secondary is a disaster. If they had Williams and Allen healthy, I would not be picking Atlanta here. But the Falcons at +3, given the Chargers injuries, like seems like a good deal. I wish we were getting +3.5, but +3 should be good enough.
Yeah, that you mentioned, though, just falling on these key numbers for the previous one with the benefit of the hook. Not a deterrent here for you at all with Atlanta. And the key thing is, even if Atlanta doesn't want to run, they're going to have the ability to run all day on LA.
Yeah, and in these contests, you get half a point for a push. So it's not like a total loss. It doesn't count as a loss if it lands on 3. So not as big of a concern. If this were +2.5, I'd stay away. But you at least get half the point if the Chargers win by 3.
All right, our 4th of 5 plays this week, Walt.
Yeah, our final underdog of the week, the Panthers +7 against the Bengals. So we saw what happened with the Bengals Monday night. Typically don't like to overreact to stuff, but I think there's a lot wrong with the Bengals right now. Offensively, Jamar Chase being out, it's a huge deal. I mean, it's funny that people make such a big deal about these number one receivers being so great. And then a number one receiver is injured and doesn't play, and people still were betting the Bengals on Monday night. So the Cincinnati's offense was not nearly the same. And I think that's going to be an issue going forward. Carolina's defense is actually 13th in EPA, so it's pretty good defense. They should be able to shut down Joe Mixon. They're really good against the run, and Joe Burrow is seeing a lot of pressure in the pocket. And then defensively, the Bengals suddenly have a lot of injuries. The 2 top defensive tackles are out. They lost their top cornerback, Chidobe Awuzie. Their second best corner, Mike Hilton, is not practicing. So I don't understand why the Bengals are favored by 7. It feels like this line should be like closer to 4, even though the Panthers have a terrible record. The Panthers have been mostly competitive this year, despite the record. They only got really blown out a couple of times, but remember, week 1, they almost beat the Browns. Week 2, they outplayed the Giants. If it wasn't for 2 fumbles, they may have won that game. And they almost beat Atlanta last week. So their record right now could be a lot better. And if it was, this line would not be 7. Teams coming off Monday night blowout losses. No, I'm not a huge trend guy, but I think this one makes sense. Teams coming up Monday night blowout losses at 17 or more since 2000 are 41 and 59 against the spread. And I think that's because teams have issues making good adjustments when they need to. And I think this is the case of the Bengals because they have injuries defensively and they have no number one receiver anymore. Feels like they need a whole week to get right, and they just don't have enough time. So I like Carolina to cover the spread and potentially win outright. I'm going to bet the money line in real life, but Carolina +7 in the Supercontest and the Circa Millions sounds great.
I know you just mentioned your point about trends, and it's a week-to-week thing by all means in the NFL, but are you buying into the whole Super Bowl loser hangover with the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think it was a thing earlier in the season. They were expected to play better like with their offensive line because they added 3 offensive linemen this offseason, and they just weren't able to gel together. I think it might be because teams just don't play in the preseason anymore. Like, I think it's just sort of like back in the old days when teams would play even the final preseason game, like they may have gotten off to a better start. But I think it's definitely true. They played a long season. Players get tired. So I think it's definitely a thing. So yeah, we're talking about with trends. I think trends are fine if they make sense. Like if you could talk through them logically and be like, okay, this trend is good because, but like if you're like, all right, this team is like teams are 20-2 against the spread on the 3rd Thursday of each other month. Like those don't make any sense to me. But teams struggling off Monday night blowout losses really make a lot of sense.
I saw a trend about the Phillies in powder blue and how they should. Yes, so they are out there, unfortunately, but right for you and others to recognize a trap trend when you see one. All right, my friend, final play of the week.
Yeah, the Raiders -1.5 against the Jaguars, and I don't think a lot of people want to bet the Raiders after what they saw last week. They couldn't score a single point. I don't even know if they were in Saints territory that often, just off the top of my head. But I love going with at least like average or better teams coming off humiliating losses. And that was definitely accumulating. But I think they were blown out for a reason. Like they had 15 players with illnesses. And you saw like Devontae Adams was so sluggish in that game. It's like a third of the roster was sick with the flu or whatever it was. So they're going to be healthier now. I think they're going to bounce back against a Jaguar team that their only covers this year were against injury-ravaged teams, like week 2 against the Colts when they were missing their top 2 receivers and Shaq Leonard, and then week 3 when Justin Herbert shouldn't have played. Those are the only covers the Jaguars have had this year. They've been very disappointing. I think they're very poorly coached. Doug Peterson, I think, has done a terrible job. A lot better than Urban Meyer, but that like who wouldn't be better than Urban Meyer, right? But they just haven't met expectations. They can't stop anything. Their defense sucks. I think the Raiders are going to be back to business here. And if you take away that Saints game, just to erase that from your memory, they played pretty well heading into that game. Like they lost to the Chiefs by 1. They were up 17-0 in that game. They blew out the Texans. They scored a lot on Denver's defense, which no one else has done this year. So I think the Raiders are underrated right now, especially coming off that blowout loss. I think they bounce back. And I like getting them as long as they're -2.5 or less. Like at -3, I would be hesitant, but getting the Raiders, if they win by 3, getting that right, it sounds good to me.
All right, let's recap here for everybody out there. Commanders +3.5. You have the Lions +3.5. You have the Falcons +3. The Panthers +7. And the lone favorite, the Raiders, bouncing back from that shutout loss, laying 1.5 against the Jags. Was that it, or was there anything else? Like something else must have made the cutting table for you this week, right?
Yeah, a few games were close. So I was looking at Rams Buccaneers. If Rams were +3 in the contest, and I knew Cooper Kupp would be playing for sure, I think I would be on the Rams. But they're +2.5 in the contest. Just not getting good value there. I considered the Saints +3 against the Ravens on Monday night. But as my podcast co-host Jacob reminded me, Andy Dalton is just so bad on national TV. I think he's like 6-18 on national TV. So I don't really want to touch that. And then if I knew Ryan Tannehill were playing, I would take the points with the Titans against the Chiefs. Tennessee's run rushing attack is going to have a big advantage against the Chiefs. And I think people might be wondering how Tennessee is going to keep up on the scoreboard. I think that they're going to be able to run the ball very heavily with Henry, kind of like the Raiders did in that Monday night game. Just keep Mahomes off the field. And I think the game's going to be close, but I don't want to back Malik Willis at all.
Makes total sense, especially the last point being the king one, which is he can't go with the rookie, but Tannehill in there adds a completely different dynamic, especially with that number. All right, we'll do this again each and every week, so we appreciate you all rolling with us. Again, make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already to our channel here on OddsShopper. You hit that thumbs up button on your way out. On your way out, meaning from here to Walterfootball.com, where you can get everything from mock drafts to rankings, and in between you're getting picks against the spread. You're getting a ton of fantasy football rankings and information. So you have the DFS world, the betting world, you have everything covered in the NFL and the analytics and the numbers behind it. So if there ever is a one-stop shop, you have provided it, Walter, at Walterfootball.com.
Yeah, like I said before, tons of content with the NFL, everything you're looking for in the NFL. Charlie Campbell, our senior NFL draft analyst, I think provides the best NFL draft content available. And if you're looking to bet the NFL draft, we hit all of our non-long shot picks for the draft just because of Charlie's information. So nice. come April, check us out for that as well.
Go Phils for now.
Yeah, let's bounce back.
We'll see you next week.